The fading edge of sleep. A 17-year-old boy standing holding a stopwatch. Two of his friends are beside him. They're taking turns keeping watch because their job is simple and strangely unusual. They have to make sure their friend never falls asleep. December 28, 1963, 6 a.m. From that moment on, Randy Gardner would stay awake for 264 consecutive hours. He had no idea that sleep wasn't what he thought it was. Neither was being awake. For most of human history, sleep was considered death's younger sibling. In ancient Greece, Hypnos, the god of sleep, and Thanatos, the god of death, were twin brothers. Every night when your eyes closed, your soul was believed to leave your body, only to return with the morning. Simple, poetic, beyond question. By the 19th century, sleep itself remained one of science's greatest mysteries. Why did every living creature sleep? Why did sleep-deprived animals eventually die? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, what was the brain doing during sleep that made it so essential? In 1959, a New York radio host named Peter Tripp volunteered for a publicity stunt. He attempted to stay awake for 201 consecutive hours, live on the air. By the 8th day, he began seeing insects crawling everywhere. He became convinced the threads in his suit were worms. When a doctor entered the studio to examine him, Tripp mistook him for an undertaker and tried to run away. Eventually, the broadcast ended. Tripp finally slept, but he was never quite the same again. His personality changed. He struggled with depression. His marriage eventually fell apart. December 28, 1963, San Diego. Randy Gardner was an ordinary high school student looking for a science fair project. One of his friends offered a simple idea. What if you just never went to sleep? It sounded fun. At first, it actually was. By the third day, Randy could no longer recognize objects in his own hands. He tried reading a street sign. The letters blurred together. He felt perfectly fine, but his eyes could no longer focus. On the fourth day, he became convinced he was the famous American football player Paul Lowe. By the seventh day, he could still form sentences, but he couldn't finish them. The words came, the meaning didn't. On the eighth day, researchers asked him to perform a simple countdown. Randy began counting, then he stopped. He had forgotten, not just the number, but why he had started counting in the first place. That was the moment the researchers realized what was happening. Randy wasn't sleeping, but his brain was. Scientists call this microsleep. The brain briefly shuts down, even while you're awake, sometimes for only a few seconds. Your eyes remain open, your body stays upright, but parts of your brain simply go offline. That was exactly what was happening to Randy. His brain had begun sleeping while he was still awake. 264 hours, 11 days, 24 minutes. January 8th, 1964, 6 a.m. Randy Gardner had broken the world record for staying awake. After photographers captured the moment, he was finally allowed to sleep under medical supervision. He slept for 14 hours and 40 minutes. When he woke, he felt fine. He smiled at reporters. Everything appeared perfectly normal. But the researchers noticed something remarkable. His brain wasn't trying to recover every hour of lost sleep. Instead, it immediately prioritized the deepest and most important stages of sleep, especially REM sleep. It was as if the brain had its own emergency checklist. Save this first, the rest can wait. And scientists began to realize something extraordinary. The brain doesn't rest during sleep, it works. But what exactly is it doing? Even today, we don't know the full answer, but we have powerful theories. While we sleep, the brain clears away toxic waste that builds up during the day. It organizes memories, processes emotional experiences, strengthens neural connections. But why can these things only happen during sleep? Why does consciousness have to switch off? Is the brain working to put you to sleep, or can it only do its most important work once you're asleep? And this is where Randy Gardner's story becomes deeply unsettling. Because if the brain can fall asleep while you're still awake, then one question remains. How awake are you right now? Today, Randy Gardner is 77 years old. For decades, he struggled with chronic insomnia. The experiment never truly left him. Years later, he admitted something with complete honesty. I wished I'd never done it. At the beginning of this video, I asked you to imagine a boy standing there, holding a stopwatch. Now, let's return to that moment. Maybe that stopwatch wasn't measuring how long he stayed awake. Maybe it was measuring how long the brain could hold out before surrendering. Because sometimes your eyes can remain open while your mind has already gone somewhere else.